All right, well, I'll just get started since we're, just wanted to say thank you all for coming. I love that we have this moment where we can gather Girl Scouts of all ages and read, have a common read. I think it's fantastic. I love the connections with one of our Girl Scout centers, and I just can't wait to hear what people's thoughts are and what their questions are. So thank you for coming. I'm going to pass it over to Danita Lodmell, who is the caretaker of the Trefoil Guild, and just really excited to have you all gathered today. So thanks for coming. Go ahead, Danita.
Okay, can you hear me?
We can.
Oh, good. Well, it's so good to see everyone, and welcome to everyone and to our first Trefoil Guild activity. So we're just glad to see everyone tonight. I was going to say we could introduce ourselves, but I see our names are in front of our pictures. So I think that way we can have a little roll call. You can see who you're talking with. So, all right. Well, welcome everyone, and we'll have a very good evening, I'm sure. So, Nikki?
That's great. Thank you. I think we're going to try to talk after, we have the book discussion. The author, I don't know if y'all know this, but the author is coming at 7:15. She's going to share some ideas and stories with us. I've found some really great information and other interviews she's had, and I'll share those links in the chat later. But right now I'd like to share a video I know not all of us were able to finish the book, or maybe like Evie just found out about it and wanted to come anyway. So I want to give you, there's a quick 2-minute video that talks about essentially what the book is about. And it's really, really interesting. Haley, they're in the notes. Are you able to pull that up?
I can, yes.
It's the one that's, and I don't know if you all, those of you that remembered, it's when she was, instead of butterflying, she was butter biking. So I think, and so this is the butter bike video, which I think is great.
Every winter, millions of monarchs overwinter in a tiny bit of forest in the mountains of central Mexico. Then each spring, they fly north, spreading out over the eastern United States and even Canada before looping back to the exact same forest in Mexico. During the migration, a female monarch lays an egg on a special group of plants called milkweed. The egg hatches into a caterpillar which only eats milkweed before metamorphosing into a chrysalis and eventually an adult. This adult is the next generation and continues the migration. It takes 4 generations of monarchs to complete the loop, so it's the great-great-grandkids that fly back to the special Oyamel fir forest in Mexico to survive another winter. That's right, those beautiful monarchs you see flying through your neighborhood are on a multi-generational, multinational migration. This spring, I'm also going to migrate. I'm going to follow the monarchs by bicycle from Mexico to Canada and back to learn from the monarchs and the people studying, protecting, and loving them. People like you. In Mexico, people are helping protect the important overwintering forests of the monarchs. And in the United States and Canada, people are turning parts of their yards, school grounds, parks, and roadsides into monarch gardens. The monarchs are counting on us, so be part of the migration. Watch for monarchs, plant milkweed gardens, and join me as I butter bike with the butterflies.
Anyway, I felt very lucky that I found that today, just as a little, it was a really good overview and really visual. And I know that when you go on the website, and I'll include that link in the chat in a moment, she would make watercolors and give them as gifts as a thank you. And so I love seeing all the watercolors. That just reminded me of what I imagined her, giving to people as gifts. So anyway, really beautiful. So do you all have any, I want you to feel very comfortable. I had a brief conversation with the author just to kind of plan tonight a little bit. She'll be with us for about 15, 20 minutes and really is open to any and all questions. So please feel comfortable inquiring. She might have some questions for us as well, but I've found her to be just really interested and accessible and really willing to talk about her adventures. So, and also very encouraging for us to follow our own hearts and advocate for important things and be kind to people and to the world around us. So I found she's a really interesting person. So I'm really so grateful that she could be here tonight. Does anybody have any questions before, while we're waiting for Sarah to join us? So how many of you have, oh, go ahead, Virginia. Nice to see you.
Thank you. Nice to see you, Nikki. I think you mentioned in the emails, or she mentioned that she had been a Girl Scout, right?
She has been, yes, she was, she grew up as a Girl Scout. She mentioned that she was also a Silver Award recipient. So I said to her, I'm like, oh my goodness, you're a highest award Girl Scout. She said, no, I'm not a gold. And I said, no, they're all, we consider them bronze, silver, gold, all our highest award Girl Scouts. And she went, oh, well, yeah, then I might. So yes, so she was a Girl Scout. I believe she grew up in Kansas. That's where her parents live now, but I believe she grew up, that's where she grew up. Anyway, so that I found that was just a happenstance. I want to say thank you to Marge Thomas, who many of you may know lives in Moorhead and is the founder and owner of Fuzzy Duck Coffee Shop and the Coffee Tree Books. So when we were coming up with this idea, she said it was a wonderful conversation. Oh, and I see Sarah's coming. So it was a wonderful conversation and she encouraged it, and specifically because of the Girl Scout Center in Mexico. So just thank you, Marge, for pointing us in the right direction. Hi, Sarah. Thanks for joining us. So nice to meet you in person. I just wanted to introduce you a little bit. We were just talking about how you were a Girl Scout, and we like to say, once a Girl Scout, always a Girl Scout. And that I also shared that you received your Silver Award. So we have some highest award recipients or parents of Gold Award Girl Scouts in our midst. So anyway, welcome. And I just wanted to introduce you briefly, and then please feel free to just lead our conversation or ask us questions and we'll do the same. Sarah Dykman is a scientist, an educator, a monarch advocate, and most of all, she's an adventurer. Her story celebrates adventure and bravery and sends a message of caretaking for our world and for each other. Thank you so much, Sarah, for coming and for sharing your story. It's truly an inspiration, and we're really honored to have you here tonight. So thank you and welcome.
Yeah, thanks for letting me jump on and inviting me and talking about my book and the Monarchs. And yeah, I'm happy to be here. I'm happy to answer questions if people have a random question, or I'm not sure if there was like an overview of my book or anything. Like I mean, the basics, if you haven't heard of it, is in 2017, I rode my bike 10,200 miles following the Monarchs. And the goal is always to be their voice. Monarchs can't call city council members. They can't vote. They can't write letters. That's our job. So the Monarch brings us adventure and brings us beauty and brings us science. And then we turn around and advocate for them. Mm-hmm. I see a hand up. Is that a question? Yeah.
It wasn't a question. I wanted to tell you that me and my friend Charlotte, who's also on for this Zoom, we're doing a Monarch way station for our Bronze Award.
Oh, awesome.
Nice.
And is it going to be at your school or at your house?
I think it's gonna be at a park. I'm not sure exactly what park yet.
Nice. And have you done research? Have you been researching what a way station needs? You should tell people here if you're feeling up to it. Because that's a big deal. I bet people here don't know what a way station is. Do you want to tell them?
Sure. Well, it's a place where monarchs, when they're migrating, can rest. And, well, and it's especially good because then people can kind of see them and get to know that monarchs migrate, for one thing.
Yeah. And as someone, as a traveler, like I was traveling with the monarchs, right? And we had different needs, the monarchs and I. Like I'd go to gas stations and buy candy bars, and they would go to a way station and they would eat nectar. But I think just me living on the road and recognizing how important that is. You don't know how important it is to have a safe place to camp every night or sleep in a shrub until you're a monarch, or until you're with the monarchs, and until you need a place to sleep every night. So I think a big part of my trip was just about giving that human connection to an insect. I'm super happy to hear that you're making a way station. They're really fun. I was on a walk today and I saw one, and it's the middle of winter, so everything is kind of brown and cut back, but it still looked really beautiful. And your state way station reminds me when I was in, I stayed with 68 families on my trip. When I was in Missouri, one of my favorite gardens that I saw my entire trip was in this woman's front yard. And a lot of people put their milkweed. Milkweed is the only food source of the monarch caterpillar. They'll often put their milkweed in the backyard like they're embarrassed. And what I love about way stations is when you can, and like just what you said, how it can be an example, it can teach people. And so people will walk by your way station and they'll be like, what is that? And then they'll look and maybe they'll see the sign and they'll Google what is it says. And then they'll be like, oh, okay, I didn't know about that. And I think what we need someone like that. We need someone planting a garden on every street, in every town, in every city, to be that example. And what I love is, if I can, I'm just kind of jumping in with a lot of random thoughts, but I think one of the biggest, coolest things the monarch taught me was what is a metaphor, if you will. And when you go to Mexico, all the monarchs that were born between the Rocky Mountains and the Atlantic Ocean fly to this one little forest in Mexico, and they create clusters that are so dense and so like that the weight of their collective weight will actually break branches. And I think about us, and I think how one person, one garden, that doesn't really mean much, right? That's not going to bend a branch, if you will. But if everyone is doing a little something, then that collective action creates big change. And so if a bunch of butterflies can come together and break a branch off of a tree, then we can come together and be the example so that we don't lose the monarchs. So yes, that's awesome. I bet it's going to inspire a lot more gardens. I see another hand up.
So in your book, you said that for your trip, you didn't really have much of a plan. You had like a route that you were going to follow, but you didn't have a plan as to where you were going to camp and where you're going to get food. And like, was it ever daunting to not have a plan? Like, did you ever realize I don't know where I'm going to camp tonight? Were you ever scared by that?
Not so much scared as annoyed often. Like it'd be time to camp and I'd be hungry and tired and I'd start to get hangry and I'd get frustrated that like it was just so much development, so much corn, so much habitat that was stolen, and I couldn't have a place to sleep. So it was a lot of frustration. But I mean, I didn't have a plan, but I always knew that I would figure something out. So I never felt super stressed. And I think that is scary for a lot of people, but I have all this experience telling me that it's going to be okay, right? This wasn't my first trip. When I finished college, I went on a 15-month trip, and we biked to my friends and I biked to every state but Hawaii. And on that trip, we had lots of hospitality, and we also we call it stealth camping, which is when you just camp off the road somewhere. And so I learned over the course of 15 months that it always kind of works itself out. And now for me, that was one thing. And I think maybe my biggest growth on this trip was recognizing that like that's not for everyone, right? You know, like if I had looked different, and I think actually being a woman actually really helps me, because people would see me behind a church and their initial reaction would be, oh, that woman's probably safe and nice. She's probably not doing anything wrong. And so I was actually able to use being a woman, I think, a lot to my advantage. And it made me feel safer, because I knew what was scary on the trip was always the unknown of humans. Never was I going to find a place to stay. But if I knew that people were assuming the best in me, that made it the whole trip less scary. And I have to imagine, what if I had been, let's say, a Black man behind a church? What would people's first reactions have been? And how would that have changed the trip? And so I think a lot of times people are scared for my lack of plan, but because I'm a woman, because I'm white, and because I knew that in the past that it worked out, I wasn't very scared. If that answers your question. I kind of went a lot of places. It's a lot of layers to that question.
Mhm.
I had a question that reminds me of just with not having a plan and just kind of a vision of where you're going and being able to reach out. Like, I loved it whenever you were able to stop at your parents. I loved that story and how fun and exciting it was to have that little check-in and bit of comfort in the middle of the journey. But my personal favorite kind of companion that you had was Louie. And so I was wondering who your favorite kind of person you encountered during your journey was.
I mean, I really enjoyed all the people with gardens, just from the standpoint of, like, it was 2017 and I biked for 15 months by myself through what I would consider a fairly broken part of our country, like just a lot of development, a lot of sprawl, and a lot of monoculture, GMO corn, and mostly corn. And it just, like, it got under my skin, and it hurt. Like, I felt the visceral attacks of our changing planet, and it hurt. And then I would get frustrated, and then a car would go by me fast. So a lot of my trip was actually filled with rage and despair. And then I would meet someone, and I just consider these people my medicine, right? And so it was always just so healing to meet people that were trying to make change, that were leading by example, that were making way stations, that were looking at the world and saying, I don't want to just live in this world. I don't want to be part of the problem. I want to actually work towards a change so that people can ride their bikes and not feel this anger all the time. And so my book, so my trip, when I did my trip, I talked to about 9,000 students on my trip. And the goal was always to talk to kids about how awesome science and adventure is and how cool the monarchs are. And so I finished the trip originally wanting to write a book for a 10-year-old, and realized about halfway through my first draft, I'm like, I have stuff to say that's going to bore a 10-year-old, because it's about my anger and my frustration and my rage at this broken planet. And so I kind of pivoted, but, like, the book was about getting that rage out of me, and then also just reminding myself about all the hope and all the fuel that is still out there. And so that's a backhanded way. I can't pick one, but I know the ones that I would leave their house feeling rejuvenated were the ones where people were trying to be part of the solution, whatever that was.
Right. I actually thought of when you said that it was originally your original intent was a children's book. I actually was reading this and thinking this would be a great to have an accompanying, like almost like book clubbing had the accompaniment of a children's book, and the 3 Cups of Tea had a children's book accompaniment. I'm like, this would be great for it to, juniorize it. And just because I loved your role, and I didn't anticipate it. I didn't anticipate that the role of as educator that you were going to take. I mean, I'm so grateful you did. And, I want you to swing, but, make a little bit of a detour next, if you ever bike through Kentucky again, and stop by and see us, maybe stop by the Monarch plans that Charlotte and Evie have. So,
Cool.
But I loved that part of the book, just your role as an educator. Can you talk a little bit more about that? Just, it seems like the kids were always just so excited to see you, and also so thirsty for more knowledge.
Yeah, I mean, think about the things that you've learned in your life. Like, probably none of it was from some person standing up in a classroom and talking at you, right? Like the way we learn as the way I learned today as an adult is by going out and doing things. Like, check this out. I just learned how to silk screen by silk screening. I just made this. This is my first, got it through the wash. And like, I'm not going to forget that, right? Because I had to go through the steps and I had to make the mistakes and I had to get my hands dirty. And so I think just reminding kids that that's how you learn. And like, I would talk about my mistakes. Like one of my favorite stories, I'm actually working on a young reader, middle reader book right now, about halfway done with the first draft. But my best joke, it's a lot sillier. I talk about this mistake I made in Mexico where I'm learning Spanish, right? Of course you're going to make mistakes. And I'm at the dinner table and I tell everyone, I say, quiero lavar los traseros. Now, if you speak Spanish, you know what I just said was not, I want to wash the dishes. It was, I want to wash the butts. And, but like admitting that to a kid is like giving them the key to the world, which is you're going to make a lot of mistakes. And if you can laugh at them, and if you can like say like, no, that's not what I meant, I'm so sorry, I want to wash the dishes. Like, then if you can turn those mistakes into learning, then that's good. And so again, I'm kind of going all over the place with my answers, but I think just reminding kids that there's other ways to learn and that there's other ways to live. And we get so caught up in what you need to be successful is this, and this. And most people don't want this, and this. They're doing it for these dumb reasons. And so if we can give them examples of other ways, so we can say, you can be successful doing this, and this, if that's what you want, but you can also do this, and 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 like, just let people have the freedom to like live their lives and not get so caught up and I'm gonna say it again, dumb stuff. Like there's other ways, and it's not dumb if that's what you want, but if it isn't, like have permission to do something else. And I think some crazy some weirdo lady and with a dirty bike and dirty clothes coming into your school and telling you she biked from Mexico because she likes butterflies, like, oh, okay. All right. I see some more hands up.
I have a question. So, to me, it's okay. I'd like to apologize for the dog. He wants my dinner and I'm not giving it to him. He's mad. But, in your book, to me, it seemed like one of the best ways to protect the monarchs and really just protect anything other than humans and human interests, is to like just be responsible with like the way you farm and like the way you live and kind of think about the other things on the planet and remember that it's not all about the humans. But America is definitely a throwaway society, and I feel like, as Americans and definitely as kids, it feels like we can't really escape that. And is there even a point in trying?
Yeah, one of the most common things people told me on my trip was, when I was a kid, that's my old person voice, sorry, I used to see lots of monarchs, and I'd always just want to be like, okay, what are you doing about it? Do you have a way station? Are you recycling? Are you demanding different things to happen in the world? And there were people that said, yes, I'm trying, here's the list. And there were people that said, no, I'm not trying. And I guess if we're going to fail, I want us to go down trying. It's fun to try. Like, I've made a lot of friends because I'm trying, and I've had a lot of amazing experiences because I'm trying. So I guess my focus is less on, are we going to be successful, and more, are we at least trying? And are we having fun while we're trying? And, the monarch has this huge voice because people care about monarchs. And if everyone was yelling the same thing, then we would hear that. And we know people are hearing because there are things happening that help monarchs. There's good news. And so I think it's easy to forget that, but all of like so many of the things that we love happened because people tried. And so I guess we just have to keep trying. And that's like a bad answer, but except for that, it's a good answer because I'm having fun while I'm trying and I feel less helpless. And the monarch is like the most amazing answer in a lot of ways, because like you said, like it can feel impossible and it can feel like everything is against us. But then you can like literally just go into your backyard and plant a milkweed, and like that's helping, right?
Mhm.
It doesn't matter what your neighbor's doing. It doesn't matter what the president's doing. It doesn't matter what the governor's doing. Like all it matters is that you planted that milkweed. And like, so today the monarch won. Who cares what's happening everywhere else? Today that monarch won. And so the monarch is teaching us that like we can't change everything, but we can go to our backyards and plant a milkweed and like make a win for the monarch today. And that's awesome, because otherwise what's the point? So yeah, again, another long answer.
All good. Evie, you have an answer. You have a question too.
Yeah, I was wondering if you made that shirt, then you should make a business selling them.
Yeah, you know, it's hard work. I would like to. So one day, so my book came out in April, and obviously I didn't do any book tour or anything, but I have a dream to finish my young adult book, and then the country be in a place where it's safe for me to bike again, and it's safe for me to stay in people's houses, and it's safe for me to do presentations and go to schools and travel like I did. And I will sell some books, and I will sell a couple t-shirts. But these, you thought about throwaway culture. I bought all of my shirts that I've silk screened so far from a thrift store. So they're all going to be one of a kind, and they're going to be not adding. The paint is like a little toxic, probably. It says water-based, but what does that mean? But at least the shirts aren't contributing to the problem.
Mhm.
They're being recycled.
Mhm. Marge,
Yes.
did you have a question?
Oh, no.
Oh, I saw your hand go up.
Oh,
I saw,
no.
but Virginia did too. Go ahead,
I
Virginia.
will say though that I listened to the book.
Cool.
You actually did a book group with the bookstore that I own, Coffee Tree Books in Moorhead,
Okay, cool.
Kentucky.
Yeah.
Mhm. And so I listened to it, and it was really, for those of you who haven't read it yet, listening to it is really good because she reads it.
Mhm.
It was fun listening to it in your voice.
You know what's amazing is I didn't actually do the reading.
You didn't?
No,
I thought you did.
no, my publisher was like, don't try, it's so hard.
Oh.
And they were like, we're busy and COVID is making everything nuts. Like, don't even ask.
Don't do
Just
it.
let a professional do it. But they sent me 3 actors, and like they were all like these like old British ladies. And I was just like, I'm like, this isn't a period drama. Have you read the book? And it was like a different department that wasn't connected to my publisher directly.
Oh.
And like it was
Well, I
such
don't
a
know why I
challenge.
thought you had read it.
Well, I kept saying I want a
that's-
normal woman voice. Like, I don't want an actor voice. I don't want, like,
Right.
they sent me this woman that's just, she was like so perfect. Like she felt like she was like perfect. And
Well,
I'm
it
like,
was
no,
very
I want
easy.
like
It was
a real
was-
woman.
it was easy listening. It was very
Yeah.
good.
Well, I haven't listened because it's just, you don't want to. Or
Yeah.
I don't want to.
No, it was
But
very good.
that's good, because I fought so hard, and a few tears were shed
Yeah.
over the choosing of that. And I'm just like,
Yeah.
why they don't get it?
No,
It's great.
they did a good
Good.
choice.
Yeah, I was happy with her.
Mhm.
Good.
Well, when you get your children's book, let us know. We'd love to
I
have you
will.
bicycle through Kentucky and stuff.
All right.
Mhm.
Awesome. Thanks for the invite.
Virginia, did you have a question?
Yes, a kind of a two-pronged question. I know that the milkweed is the only thing that the butterflies can feed on, but what forces are there besides lack of milkweeds that are causing the butterflies' demise? I mean, are there predators or something in the air, or heat, cooling? You know, what are the forces exactly that are impacting them? And do you think that the governments of the world or of our states and cities should be doing something to remedy the situation? And if so, what kind of legislation would it be?
Mm. There's a lot of factors. Climate change is a pretty big piece of the pie. So monarchs are cold-blooded, right? And so if a monarch lays their egg, and it usually takes about a month to go from egg to adult. The climate is changing when milkweed emerges. So the monarchs are arriving before there's even milkweed to lay their eggs, or they're arriving and there's drought, so there's less milkweed, or they're arriving and it's earlier spring, so the milkweed's bigger, so they go further north. Like there's all these little things that play. And so like the world is just like so perfectly pieced together. And as we change the pieces, everything starts to unravel. And the reason I mentioned how long it takes to metamorphose, the year that I rode my bike with the monarchs, is there was a big cold front. And so instead of the monarchs metamorphosing in 30 days, it was taking them 45 days, which means there's 15 days where there's no breeding at all, which means there's 15 days where there's just going to be less monarchs. And so a perfect summer scenario would be as many generations as possible, metamorphosing as quickly as possible, because every female is going to lay 500 eggs. And so if there can be a whole nother generation with 500 extra eggs, that adds up. So climate change is obviously a big deal, but it's 100% the problem is habitat loss. So I mentioned those 500 eggs. Let's say there used to be a billion monarchs every year, or give or take. That means there's 500 million females, and each of those females needs 500 milkweed plants. So the goal for conservation right now is to plant 1 billion stems of milkweed. Because if there's not 1 billion stems of milkweed, then there's not 1 billion eggs that can be laid. And 95% of those eggs are going to get eaten by predators, which isn't a bad thing. Some people think, oh, the solution is take all the monarchs and rear them indoors or rear them in cages. But like, well, we need those 95% that don't become butterflies to feed the spiders, that feed the frogs, that feed the birds. Like we need those. But what we need is to start with 1 billion stems of milkweed so that we can have 1 billion eggs, so that some of those eggs will recover or will become adults. And yes, of course, the government needs to do something about this, in my opinion. I mean, this is a huge, wide scale butterfly. And what's so beautiful about it is that it's not just a Kansas problem, it's not just a Kentucky problem, it's not just a Canada problem or a Mexico problem. And so it's not just one of those solutions, it's everybody. And if everyone in Mexico is doing 100% of everything they can, and people in Canada are doing nothing, then it won't work. So it really needs everyone. And the way we get everyone involved in things is usually by having a leader. And in our case, usually the leader is the government. And what it means is protecting land, and it means encouraging farmers to share their land. So corn is a good example. I've already mentioned it a few times. Corn and milkweed used to coexist. Milkweed is a disturbance species. There wasn't actually that much common milkweed. The common name is common milkweed before European settlers arrived. But as soon as the plow was introduced, there was disturbance in the prairie, and the common milkweed capitalized and became really common. So corn and milkweed were growing together. The problem is, it used to be when the milkweed emerged, the corn had emerged, and the farmer couldn't spray their crops, because if they sprayed the milkweed, they'd kill their corn. And what happened was GMOs were invented, and so all of a sudden the corn that emerged was resistant to the pests or the herbicides. So the farmer could spray after the emergence of the plants, and so all the milkweed would die. So basically overnight, I mean, we're talking in a few years, we went to about 95% GMO corn. And that corn is subsidized, and it's polluting our water, and it's doing all sorts of gnarly things to our planet. And I'm not blaming farmers. What I'm asking is, there's another way. We've seen another way. And so what we need is the government to step up and say, we're going to support the farmers so that they don't lose their livelihoods, and so that we can actually have food and share the planet. And so it's about sharing, and that comes down to supporting farmers that are doing the right thing. And so like, I have enough money I always try and buy organic because that is supporting the farmers that are doing the right thing. And that's a little thing, but it's something.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Teresa, we haven't heard from you. I know you want you to share.
Okay. Hi.
You're muted.
So,
There you go.
my daughter Mary Laura is also listening in. She'll go to college next year for an environmental sciences and studies degree. So we were really interested reading the part, and I don't remember the page number, but where you were talking about the difference that the monarch butterfly itself is not endangered, that they have like a big enough range as a species, they're not endangered. It's actually the migration that's endangered. And so I was kind of wondering, so like if the species itself is not endangered, like is there enough milkweed like and habitat to support them? And like how does that vary from the migration? Like is there just not milkweed in the right places? Does it really have more to do with like the Oyamel forests? I mean, does that make sense? Like I'm kind of wondering like where that springs from, trying to understand the whole
Right. Yeah, that's a good question. So basically the monarchs evolved as a temperate or a species that needed warmer climates. They can't overwinter. And so there were these southern species that realized, oh, if we fly north, there's lots of milkweed, there's lots of host plants for our larvae. We can capitalize on that, but then we have to fly back. So the migration spurred out of this. Wow, there's really good habitat in the north, but we can't survive the north. So as climate change has changed the planet, now there's like pockets, like say in Florida, that are probably at a place where it doesn't get cold enough anymore to kill the monarchs in the winter. So there's a few monarchs. This still is changing, but obviously it's going to keep changing. Right now, that it's not every winter, but some winters monarchs survive in Florida and they're becoming resident. So they're no longer migrating because there's not the threat of death in the winter. There's monarchs in New Zealand. There's monarchs now in Spain. There's monarchs in other parts of Europe, and there's monarchs in California. And most of these monarchs are either resident or their migrations are very short, and they're not multi-generational. They're not multinational. So if we don't have enough milkweed in the Midwest, what happens is that and if climate change continues to be too much of a burden on the monarchs, then there will not be monarchs making the migration from Mexico to Canada and back. But perhaps there'll be some monarchs that survive in Florida, or the monarchs in New Zealand, or the monarchs in Spain. So one of the reasons the monarch was people were trying to get the monarch on the endangered species list, but it's endangered species, and the monarch as a species isn't extinct. It's a lot kind of like culture, right? Humans are not at risk of extinction, but certain indigenous populations are. And we see the value in like, wow, conserving that knowledge, conserving that language, conserving that way of life. So we're going to focus our attention recognizing the fact that like the species is okay. And so Lincoln Brower was a famous monarch scientist, and he was the one that coined the idea of thinking of the monarch as a phenomenon and fighting for a phenomenon. And like monarchs are awesome, but if they didn't do this migration, I think they would be less amazing. I mean, not less, that's the wrong word, but they wouldn't captivate us in the same way. And I think there's just something so beautiful about the fact that you could see a monarch that had visited Mexico, and you could see a monarch that came from New York, and that were connected by these monarchs. And like when you see a monarch in the fall, knowing that that monarch is flying to a forest in Mexico that they've never been to, but that their great grandparents knew. And like those things are just so incredible. Like I have goosebumps just thinking about how incredible that is. And that's what we stand to lose. And so that's why
So just to follow up, I want to agree with you. I mean, we do have the viceroy, and they're not nearly as impressive as the monarch, even though.
Well, they're pretty cool.
I mean, they're all cool, right? But I get what you're saying. It's the migration that makes them different from other butterflies, right? So follow up to what you're saying. you said the milkweed in the Midwest. So where is the most important place? Like, how important is milkweed in Kentucky versus milkweed in Kansas? Does it have as big an effect?
The monarchs, the main monarchs, it used to be, we call it the I-35 corridor. It used to be Texas to pretty much Minnesota. And then, so Iowa, Indiana, Kansas, Missouri, like those northern Midwest states were the heart of the migration. Now, what happened was European colonialists began to cut down the northern forests. Prairie emerged, so the monarchs followed the prairie as that emerged. Climate change is also changing where the monarchs go. And then if there's a really cool website called Journey North, it's a monarch tracking website. So you can actually go on, and the first monarch you see in the season, you can register that monarch. And I actually used their data to kind of define my route. And what you'll see is that some years Kentucky is super important, and some years Ohio is more important, or Indiana is more important, or Kansas, like every year is a little different. And the really great thing is plant a bunch of milkweed, different species from the area, plant nectar plants. Nectar plants are important too. The monarchs need them. The adults need them to fuel their migration. And even if you're not helping the monarchs specifically that moment, that year, there's a lot of other really incredible animals that rely on milkweed. There's tussock moths. They also only eat milkweed. The milkweed tussock moth, at least. And one of the really cool things about them is the monarchs, when they eat milkweed, they sequester the toxins in their body, and that's why monarchs are bright orange, warning predators. When I was a caterpillar, I ate toxic milkweed. I'm poisonous. Don't eat me. You're not going to like it. Tussock moths, they metamorphose into moths that are active at night. So being bright orange would be very unhelpful. So the milkweed tussock moth has actually developed a sound. It clicks the sound that warns bats, just like orange color warns diurnal predators. The tussock moth warns the nocturnal predators with sound. So there's like all these amazing things happening on our milkweeds. So I guess I'm kind of going around the question again, but it depends on the year. And even if you don't see a single monarch that season, they're still so important. Maybe a couple more questions, and then I'll let you guys go, and you can.
Thank you. It looks like the girls have
cut it apart.
Yes. Well, mine isn't exactly a question, but I mean, I bike too. I mountain bike, and when I started, there were not a lot of other girls mountain biking, and it was a really steep learning curve for me, and I probably would have quit if it weren't for the other inspiring women who taught me how to bike and encouraged.
Oh no.
I lost the sound.
We did lose the sound, sweetie. Uh-oh. Charlotte, we can't, and Ellie, we can't quite hear you. Your sound went out. Try again.
Sorry, what was the last part you heard? I don't know.
Mountain biking and just that you weren't getting the encouragement.
No, so what I said is like there was a steep learning curve, and there weren't many other girls, and the reason I stuck with it is because of the encouragement I received from like other women in mountain biking. And like I was when I read your book, like I was happy and I was sad and I was angry and like I was motivated to go plant milkweed, but mostly I was inspired. So thank you for being inspiring.
Thank you. Yeah, that's good to hear. There's so many amazing adventures to be had, and there's so many people pushing the limits. When I'm on the road often, I'll meet people that are doing things that I didn't think were possible. Like when I first rode my bike to 49 states, I met a guy that he was biking, I think, and we just like chatted for an hour, and he told me that he had canoed the Mississippi River. And that just was like a little seed in my head, and that sat with me. And I eventually, a while ago, paddled the entire Missouri River. And then you go on that trip, you meet someone that I've heard about, people that are rollerbladed across Australia. I've heard about people. I met an 80-year-old that's bike touring. I've met a guy breaking the record for longest unicycle trip. There's people that are swimming the Mississippi. There's people that are rowing to Europe. Like, there's just so many people doing exciting things. And I think it's really important to follow your dreams and find that inspiration. So I'm happy that you're finding yours, and that I think, you guys are inspiring to plant milkweed. And it's just like this cycle, right? It's just you follow your dreams because someone followed their dreams, and then they turn around and follow more of their dreams, and it never ends. It's awesome. So thank you.
Evie, did you have another question?
I wanted to say that I read that monarch butterflies, they only migrate once in their entire lives, and that's the only time that they'll be able to migrate. And so I think if more people knew that, then more people would be willing to help with monarchs if they knew that they'll only migrate once in their lives and they only have one chance to lay their eggs.
Yeah, that's such a good point. And one of my things that I said during my presentation was, I didn't see a monarch every day, but every day I saw people that could help. And I think it's so important to remember that, like, I can't tell everyone that. I can't tell everyone that the monarchs are cool. I can't tell everyone what we need to do. But if everyone tells someone, it ripples out, and we can reach a lot of people. And I think finding what you're passionate about and telling people about it is so important. And yeah, they only have one chance, and they flew from Mexico, some of them. That's so amazing. I'd see a little egg, like in Kentucky. By the time I was in Kentucky, it was the fall migration. And to see a little egg and know that that butterfly was going to fly to Mexico, survive all winter in Mexico, and then fly all the way back to Texas. And so if you see a butterfly in Texas in the spring, it's like it's just, the probability of them being able to do that is just so small, and that they did it is so amazing, and that we could help them is even more amazing. Mm-hmm. So yeah, that's a really good point.
Charlotte, did you want to say something too?
You said that because Florida is so warm, a lot of monarchs aren't migrating from it. And is that bad?
It's different. And I think a lot of things, I think that when the planet is changing, these systems, we don't know what it's going to mean. And it's not necessarily bad, right? Like if we'd been talking right before the dinosaurs went extinct, we'd be like, is it bad the dinosaurs went extinct? And we'd be like, well, it's bad for the dinosaurs, but it's probably good for humans, right? Because now we don't have to like live battling dinosaurs, and creatures evolved because dinosaurs went extinct. So I don't think change is necessarily bad, but it's different, and the not knowing and the transition can be a little scary. Mm-hmm. So we're just watching things change in a way that is not something that humans have seen before, and so understanding what that means is scary and different. But we'll see, and it's exciting to see, and maybe something really, really crazy will emerge, really amazing that we didn't foresee, and we'll probably lose some things that we love, and maybe gain some things we didn't know, but are equally as lovable. So we'll find out. But good question.
Thank you. Really good. Thank you for so many good questions. Sarah, did you have anything that you'd like to leave with us?
No, this is fun. It's fun to just chat about, and sometimes I'll do virtual events and I just talk like this, and I have my script. It's fun to just hear what people are interested in, and it's fun to see different ages in the crowd. I think that's a really cool thing that this group has, is being able to learn from each other and recognize that we all have something to teach and learn. And so, yeah, I'm happy that you guys chose my book. I hope you liked it, and I hope it inspired, maybe not a bike ride, but milkweed or whatnot. And yeah, pass along the word. And if you have any more questions, my website has all my contact info. And yeah,
Thank you.
I just
And
want to say thanks.
Thank you so much. It's been just lovely to have you, and just we're so grateful that you could join us. I was on your website. I actually shared the little 2-minute video, butter bike video that you had. So I did share that before you joined us, and I'll be sharing all that out later. If not through the chat, I'll send an email to everyone.
Buy 2 or 3 copies from Coffee Tree.
Yeah, exactly. That too. Oh, we've been linking them as well. So we're so grateful you could join us, and keep us posted on the middle readers book, because that would be something I know that a lot of our girls would be really interested. And obviously we've got some budding environmentalists and monarch advocates with Evie and Charlotte. So really grateful that you were able to join us tonight.
Yeah. Send me a photo of the way station when it's up and you got your first monarch. Awesome. Well, I'll let you guys go. Have a great night. Thanks again for the invitation.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, take care.
Thanks, Sarah.
Bye.
Bye.
Well, Charlotte and Evie, you asked really, really good questions. So thank you. Oh, I think it's like Evie's gone, but thank you very, very much. So anyway, and thank you all for joining us. And really, let's just, if anyone has any observations or things to share, I've written some notes too, but would love to hear just people's observations or what their takeaway was.
Well, I'll just kind of kick off because the questions just, it has my brain turning, but it's awesome to hear that you young ladies are working on a way station. That's so cool. And I think that, in reading the book, that was the, of course, #1 main theme that I took from it was we are in an environmental crisis, as if we don't already know that, and we need to take, baby steps together to help alleviate that. Like you were talking about, Nikki, it was, when I finished the book, I was like, all right, now I have to go buy some milkweed and go ahead and get it going because, we're in a crisis here. So, and I know she talked a lot, which again, so cool that we got to talk to her, but I know she spoke a lot about, in the reality of her writing her book, she realized, like, I actually faced a lot of anger and rage during this trip in seeing the destruction that we have, laid across our environment. But it was lovely to hear from her that she found hope in the people that she ran across. Because, what does that show all of us is that the hope is there, and let's get it moving. So I loved it. It was a great story. She's an awesome storyteller, and it was awesome to hear directly from her too.
I'm going to ask a question to everyone. What I really enjoyed about it, and I do not travel this way. I am definitely a planner, and I know we have some world travelers on this Zoom right now, and so I'd love to hear from everyone. But particularly, I know Pat and Danita have done a lot of traveling. I marveled at her leaving it plans up to happenstance or luck, or just like, oh, and then I found a church and it was and I found this perfect spot. Or I when she was, I think it was Texas, when she found the perfect spot, and there were no actual signs, but there was a gate, and she went in, and then she realized she was locked, and she's like, oh, good, now I'm safe. I don't know if I could have done that. So what do you all think about that? And also, if you travel a lot, how comfortable are you with that kind of happenstance and luck?
Okay, so I'm going to jump in, even though I'm not a world traveler like Pat and Danita, because the attorney in me cringed the whole way through, right? And the backpacker in me with leave no trace and stuff. When we backpack, there's a lot of rules about where you can camp. When you are in the national forests and parks and stuff, you have to be so many yards away from water sources and cliff faces and things like that when you're in the Daniel Boone. So I cringed at a lot of that because I was like, oh, I don't know if I want my daughter reading this and thinking it's okay to do that, because there may be environmental impacts to that. And I assume that Sarah's enough of an expert to understand where she can camp and she can't, right? Like in a churchyard, you're not going to make a huge impact. But I kept thinking about, a teenage girl or young college age girls or boys reading this book and thinking it's okay to just stop and camp anywhere. And Mary Laura is always leave no trace, leave no trace, leave no trace, like preaching to me about it. And so I don't know. I had a lot of problems with it. And I mean, that's just fundamentally my personality. Obviously it worked out. Obviously it's a valid way to do it. But that was probably my biggest obstacle reading the book was that, right? Because it kept throwing me off when she would talk about that, and I would get stuck and I'd have to just leave the book and come back to it and go, I'm reading this because I really want to learn about the environmental science part of what she's talking about, and I'm not going to worry about property rights. Like, that's not why I'm here. I need to walk away from that. So that's just my commentary.
Teresa, did you say that you're an attorney? Well, I'm a retired attorney, but I had like the opposite reaction. It's like, this woman is so awesome. She has such a deep faith and trust in humankind and in the world around her, including the spiders and the mice and whatever, that she is their friend. She's everybody's friend. And I think she's an awesome communicator, and she might be one of these people that, as soon as you meet her, you feel like you've known her all your life. So I want to be more like that. I want to be less of an attorney, and I want to be more of this innocent, trusting person. And I would like there to be more people like that in the world. And I think that, we get a false image and feeling from the media and other people around us sometimes, and things we read, that we have to be so careful. But, when 98% of all the people in the world would welcome us, if we treat them well, they would treat us well, then how much really should you worry about that 2%? So that was just kind of my reaction.
I personally love her spontaneity. I love that. When I was young, that's kind of how I went about most of my, travels here, or just kind of spent my life looking at others, very gently, and I felt that everyone was kind and everyone was caring. And, as a 18 to probably, into my mid 20s, going about thinking that, what, everyone will be there for me. And so this is something that I can do. I can go about my business. I can do what I want at 4 o'clock in the morning. I can go out by myself, and I can drive across Kentucky. I can drive across the US, and I can meet people and say hello and all that. I didn't have a child then. And so my thinking on that has changed a little bit. And I worry for where, my 9-year-old will want to go when she is 20, because I feel that we're very much alike. But I love that. I love that she went. I love that she found, comfort in picking up her belongings and going across, through Mexico and the US and back to advocate for something she greatly believed in. And she talked to people along the way, and people did welcome her. I thought that was wonderful. And I wish everybody could be like that. I wish I could go back to that younger me and do that. I would love to do that.
I guess I just wish she had picked up some of the Girl Scout planning spirit and had like a list of campgrounds along her route and stuff right? Like, that's my only thing. I can't get past, like, we have to fill out trip approval forms and like all my Girl Scout leader, trainings, right? Like, it gave me heart palpitations thinking about that.
Wrote something, I think it's on, I tried to take notes when I was going along. It was early in the book, it was page 22. She's talking about the wing it philosophy. I tried to give space to that which I couldn't imagine, to encourage just enough discomfort for an adventure to unfold. And I loved that concept of just like, we're just going to see, we're going to do the best we can, and we're just going to see what happens. So I'm going to ask Pat and Danita if you all are comfortable sharing. I know, like I said before, you all are definitely world travelers. Do you find that you have that same philosophy?
Actually, that's my favorite way to travel. My husband and I went to New Zealand for 6 weeks, had not one single plan. All we had was a bed and breakfast book. And so we went and just went where we wanted to go and figured out what we wanted to do and stuff. And I've taken Danita a little bit on that. We went to Vermont and didn't have any plans and just decided where to go next. But that's not always possible if you travel with Girl Scouts. So
Right. And you said it's your favorite way to travel. It's just like where the wind takes you. Danita, what about you?
Well, I was going to say that the thing that I enjoy most about traveling with Girl Scouts is the adventurous spirit. I like doing everything and trying new things. And when you're with a group of Girl Scouts, they have that same feeling. It's not, we're just not going to sit in the hotel and and play games or whatever. We're going to be out hiking and looking at things and exploring, and that's what I really like.
And there's a huge difference whether you're just taking the risk for yourself, like she was.
That's right.
And then taking a bunch of girls along, that's a whole different ball game. And that's when Teresa, I go back, we need those laws, those rules, because we do want them all to come home safely.
Well, and that's what we have a Trailblazers group now, and we're getting ready. We're planning our first backpacking trip with a bunch of girls, right? And like I've gone backpacking in the Daniel Boone, where you just set off and then you find a campsite, right? And that's not going to fly with this, right? So we're starting at Carter Caves, where they have a backpacking site, and it is booked for the night, right? So that we know we have somewhere to put those girls. And it makes a huge difference, right? First, you have to be.
Yeah.
Well, and you have to remember, she had an iPhone with her. that puts the resources of the world at your fingertips.
I love that her dad, when she stopped in Kansas, her dad had been tracking her, and I thought, okay, that's me. I'm tracking her as she goes here and there, just in case.
When you're absolutely right, both of you. She had a much different journey because she was so trackable and she was documenting it. She's taking photos at every state line or country line crossing, and she had her own way stations in a way, whether it be churches or families. She really was not only highlighting the migration, but she was migrating herself, and she was finding her own way stations. So
and she had an agenda. She stopped at schools, public schools, universities. She sort of had she did have an agenda.
I love, and again, I shared this earlier on, like I loved that educator piece to this book, which I wasn't anticipating. I really thought it was just going to be about her travel. To me,
that was one of my favorite things, was when she was describing how she became an educator, more or less, with that initial trip with her buddies around the 50 or the 49 states. And they learned really fast. You can't talk to a bunch of elementary school kids like environmental scientists. You have to make some adjustments. So I really loved that too. I just thought it was so great how she just absorbed each experience and built off of it.
No, I did too. No, I really enjoyed getting like the students in Omaha, and then the family where she met the woman that was at the church. And I think she was hangry then, and she was upset that she couldn't stay at the church. And then the woman said, okay, well, come and stay with me. And then she ended up really like weaving herself into that family, and the children, they came and found her when she had already left, just to give her one more hug. I think the human experience of this, even though it was a migration and highlighting, this natural migration, but just the human spirit and the human connection, I think to me was probably the most telling in this book. And even though we're all really, we're scared and we're isolated, but fundamentally I really was very happy to read this, because it made me realize it's like, okay, we all just really want to help each other be together and, reach back our hand and bring people along. So I was going to ask a question, and we've been talking a lot about adventure and just what, if you all don't mind sharing, like, what do you think is your sense of adventure, or what in this book do you think was the greatest risk she took when she was on this adventure?
Well, I mean, just personally, there's a lot of risk.
I would say for me, what I thought was the riskiest part was the initial biking through Mexico without a good map, right? Like where I think she says it was a really old map with all these fold lines in it when she describes it. And I was like, oh my gosh, I would have at least bought a new map, right? Like to make sure I had an up-to-date map and knew which roads I could take or whatever. So I kind of felt like that was the riskiest. But again, that harkens back to like the backpacking stuff. Like you got to have a good map, right? Like, so that would be my take on the riskiest thing she did, was not having a great map in Mexico.
Marge, when we were talking, you mentioned about, how trusting she was, and how there was only one instance in this book where she basically
made the wrong decision.
Right. And nothing bad happened. It was just very uncomfortable, right, very awkward. But and that's what I think we're always worried about as parents, right, or as women. Sure. Just having that sense of safety and sense of trust. So
yeah.
I like how she.
Go ahead, please.
Sorry. I like how she mentioned her life experience as a woman, and how people's perception of women played into her comfort level and her safety, the way she felt safe, because people likely saw a woman in a tent and thought she was safe and she was kind. And I like the way that she was aware of her space and her being, right, and what she was aware of herself, and enough to know that offered her a bit of safety on her trip. I like that.
No, I was just going to share another quote that I found in the book. It's around page 140. What is that, right? 145. An adventure is an exercise in trust. We must trust ourselves, the people we meet, and in this case, the gentle bees humming homecoming songs. We must also trust in the unknown, which will reveal itself in time. And like you, Teresa, to me, that's hard. That's happenstance. That's, it's, I want to. So it's going to New Zealand and having a book of bed and breakfasts, and just feeling comfortable knowing that you're going to be, you're going to just have an adventure. So, and I think that comes with, I think it's a very wise person who can have that trust. And I think it's a patient person as well.
The adventures that I have had, when I've always had someone with me, I've done it with another friend or my husband. And I think that's the thing when she was by herself. I just don't know that I could do that. by yourself on a bicycle 10,000 miles.
I actually had that same thought, Marge, because even though she encountered a lot of people and was able
Right.
to, I feel like I would need a companion in moments where I didn't know where I was, or
Right.
sleeping in a mud
Right.
hole and the rain
Right.
starts pouring in. I don't want to be alone.
Right.
when
Misery
the
loves
frogs start
company.
attacking. Yeah,
That's right.
exactly. So
That's
I
right.
had that same thought.
Well, I went on an adventure in Italy with 3 friends. We rented a car and just went wherever we wanted to the villages and whatever. And we had some interesting things, but there were 3 other women with me. And so the 4 of us could laugh about it and dig our way out and find our way home, or find the car that looked like everybody else's, and so I don't know. I don't think I could do that by myself.
Mhm.
I mean, I know I couldn't, even
Mhm.
at my youngest. So I certainly couldn't now, but I don't have that adventurous spirit to that extent.
I was going to ask, for the people who've been to our Cabana, or even that, Mexico, or even that part of Mexico, have you experienced the monarchs there, or even part of the migration at all? I know Pat's been, and I know Danita, I don't know if anyone else has been to our Cabana. You've been, Virginia?
Yes, I went one year. I don't remember anything about the monarchs, but now they may have, because the last couple of days I was sick and I didn't get to go on their adventures with them. I stayed at the camp. But it was around central Mexico. It's just south of Mexico City, but Mexico's big. I'm not sure where the monarchs are.
Mhm. Pat or Janita, do you know how the proximity from our Cabana? And I think that's a picture of Pat at or our Cabana. Is that right, Pat? That's what's behind you?
Yes, it is. It is. The Monarch Reserves, there's a number of them, some of them more touristy than others, but they are northwest of Mexico City.
Mhm.
And they're all kind of in the same area, because it takes that certain kind of tree for them to be able to winter over.
Mhm.
And I've been to the reserves probably 4 times. Several different ones.
Mhm.
And
Which one was your favorite one?
My favorite one, my husband and I found, we used to go to Mexico for like 3 months every year after Christmas. And we were in Mexico City, and we found this bus tour that was going to one of the reserves. Didn't speak any English, which was kind of a challenge in itself. And they went to reserve, and I don't really know which one it was, but it was my favorite of any of them that I've been to. And they parked up high, and you had to walk way down into it and then way back up out of it. But the guides were all wonderful. They were all local people that make their living as a guide.
Danita, have you?
Worth going to.
How far is our Cabana from some of those, Pat?
Probably 3 hours from Mexico City.
Oh, okay.
I know we traveled and spent the night closer to where we were going, so it was some distance. But I don't remember exactly how far.
But she went to the reserves. She went to the butterfly session at the Cabana.
Yes.
Okay. Gotcha.
And the butterfly sessions at the Cabana, what they do a regular Cabana program, but you do an overnight trip to one of the reserves and actually get to go up on the mountain and be with them and see them. And then coming back through Toluca, you go through to a a wonderful old market, but it's all stained glass and it's just beautiful.
Mm.
Oh, Virginia, yes. Oh, you're going to go? Thanks for coming. It was lovely to see you. Did anybody else have any thoughts about the book? I just found it really enjoyable and very readable. I loved her language. I felt like she was sitting next to me just telling me the story. I mean, almost like she was tonight. So there any other thoughts or things that people wanted to share?
I just thought that this was a very awesome experience all the way around. I know I've said this a million times to you, Nikki, but she's an excellent storyteller. So when I found out she was going to be on the call, I was very excited. So this was the coolest book club I've ever been in.
Oh, it's because we're all here together. So,
well, I would like to say thanks to Marge for suggesting this.
yes.
You know, if you hadn't suggested it, we wouldn't have known.
Oh, you're welcome. I did think, I just looked at my thing. I thought she had read it. And actually the woman who read it, it was really fun listening to it.
Mm-hmm.
It's some books I don't like to listen to, but that one I really did. It was a really good, it was good. So I'm glad you all enjoyed it.
Yeah,
I thought it was just excellent when I listened to it.
It was a very satisfying read.
I was
Well,
gonna say, I
Nikki
also
for checking on getting her to come and putting all this together for us. Thank you.
Oh, of course, it was my pleasure. I was so
yeah.
happy to do it. And I'm so glad that so many people were able to come. Teresa, you were about to say
I was
something.
going to say, I think I would love to see Girl Scouts, or at least our Girl Scouts, try to do more cycling. Like, I think the cycling version of hers is really inspirational. And I know Susan and Haley and them know that I also have 2 sons who are in Boy Scouts with my husband. And like, that's something they pushed, right? And I know Girl Scouts has it as part of Trailblazers. A lot of it's an equipment issue, but man, I think it would be cool if this could kind of inspire some of our Girl Scouts to do some.
Well, it's definitely problem solving, just when talking about, the bungee cord or, that popped off her basket. And then like, I'm the visual of that. I'm like, woven, like everything kind of exploded. So, but then it's like, what are you going to do? It's like it's true problem solving.
It is.
And learn by doing. I mean, she even said that. I'm like, it's like she knows. So, yeah, no, there's
like, even here in Kentucky, like the Rails to Trails stuff, I think there are some places in Eastern Kentucky where you can cycle like that, like not on the road, but like on trails. And I think around Cave Run, like they have some places where you can mountain bike and stuff. And it would be cool because that would be, well, safe for girls, right? Like it brings us back to the whole, what can girls do? What can we do with girls? But I just think it would be kind of neat. So maybe one day that can be a long-term goal.
Right. Absolutely.
Yeah.
So, well, Danita, I don't know. I mean, you're welcome. Is there anything you wanted to share with the group?
Well, I would just like to say we need to do more of this. And Nikki and I had talked about maybe once a year selecting a book that we would do a book study, but also to we need ideas of things to do. So if you think of things that you would like to do, or something comes to mind, oh, that would be good for us to do. It's hard logistically with our distance and plus with the pandemic and all. So, but anyway, we're still looking for ideas of activities for us to do. So keep your minds working.
And share.
I will say,
share.
since so many here tonight, I'm going to pull this up. Wait just a minute on my phone. So many here tonight were interested in environmental issues. There is a really good book called Braiding Sweetgrass by Robin Wall Kimmerer. she's a professor at SUNY
Mhm.
in Syracuse, the SUNY Environmental Science and Forestry
Mhm.
School. And her book is really good about, she is a Native American descent. And she talks about our environment and what we have done and how we can recover some of it. And it's really good. And she does read it.
Mhm.
Well, there you go.
There she goes. She does read it. And actually, my granddaughter is in school there, and she had her last semester in class. She said she was really good.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
That
So-
book's been recommended to me by others as well. So
That book, Braiding Sweetgrass.
Braiding Sweetgrass, yes,
Mhm.
so from friends from all over the place that have
Yeah.
said it's a very good read.
It
So
is
I
good.
don't know,
It's
has Mary
not-
Laura heard of it? Teresa, has Mary Laura heard of the book?
Mary Laura has not read that one. Right now, Mary Laura has this huge reading list of kind of classic environmental stuff that she is doing for a course. So she's read Rachel Carson, and I think right now she's doing a Rachel Carson biography and follow up to having read Silent Spring. But she's also got Gorillas in the Mist on the plane, right? And then what's the one from Marjorie Stoneman Douglas? Rivers of Grass. So I kind of gave her all the like classics that kicked off the whole movement. Does
Well,
that
this
make
this one's good if she plows through all that other stuff.
I would love to do this one for another book club. It looks good. I've got it up on Amazon. Just
What?
reading the description.
The Braiding Sweetgrass.
It sounds really good from the description on.
And I don't know. I might ask Maggie. I don't know that it might be someone that would do this, that would Zoom with us. I don't know that she would do that. But
we can
until
always
you
ask,
ask,
right? That's
you
my
can always ask.
You just got to ask the question and
That's right.
hope for the best. So
he's good.
Well, I knew that Sarah had done this at the bookstore, but I don't know if Dr. Kindermore would do this or not.
All right.
But anyway.
No, that's a great, thank you, Marge. That's a great suggestion. And I really do like the idea of reading a book, especially like we announced it before the holidays, so people could, have that extra time. And, with a snowy Omicron day, this is when we could have this moment over
That's
Zoom.
right.
So, and if the author can join us, then there's that accessibility as well.
Absolutely.
But please really think about, Trefoil Guild is really, it's Girl Scouts is the connector, but the activity can be anything. I know that people have talked about wanting to travel. I think we, and do something as that group. And I know we're all looking forward to that. GSUSA is talking about travel opportunities. So we'll definitely share those. But even just within our council, just as if there's things that we can do as fellow Girl Scouts that are, that's what brings us together, but it might be another interest like a book or, going to someplace and having a tour, whatever it may be.
Right. Please
share if you have ideas or thoughts. Welcome to email me or Danita. And we're hopeful that when it warms up and things will be easier and we can gather and do some fun things together.
Good. Yeah.
So,
well, thank you. This was good.
This was really nice. And again, Marge, thank you for the book suggestion. And
you're welcome.
I'm so glad that you shared that. It was so lovely to have Sarah join us, and really good to see you all. And I love that the girls came and they had.
I did too. That was nice.
I want to know more about their bronze project. I think it's fantastic.
Yeah. That's perfect.
And they had such good questions. So really happy and thank you all very much. And just safe and warm and happy January. And looking forward to seeing you all next time.
All right. Good night.
All right. Good
Thanks,
night.
Nikki.
Thank you so much. Have a good night. Appreciate it.
Thanks again, Nikki.
Thank you both for coming. I'm so glad you were here. So thanks so much. This was great. I really appreciate it.
We'll see you.
Okay. Y'all have a good night. See you later. Okay. Bye-bye.